Welcome to day 6. Today I want to talk about the field of medical intuition itself. And one might think I would have started with this, but sometimes we skip the obvious. In the popular culture at this time, a medical intuitive is described as someone who is an alternative medicine practitioner who claims to use their self-described intuitive abilities to find the cause of a physical or emotional condition. And this is how a new field is born, with cautionary and ill-defined words. One of my passions and purpose here is to help redefine medical intuition over the years. It takes a long time to build a body of observations and evidence, to test the evidence and do research in order to bring about more qualitative and quantitative data in order to accurately describe what the individuals within the field or the field itself is about. Medical intuition is burgeoning. It's just a baby of a field. Even though there have been renowned medical intuitives in the past, such as Edgar Cayce for one, it's still a burgeoning field. There isn't enough cohesive information to really even call it a field. But I'm going to, because that's what I would like to help create. Dr. Norm Shealy and Carolyn Myss were the first to put together the two words and popularize the term medical intuition and medical intuitive. And what a great contribution. With a label, with a name, data can start going underneath that to build the field. All of us who have either been given the name or have taken it on owe them a debt of gratitude because we all stand on their shoulders. I think it's important to understand also the difference between alternative medicine and complementary medicine. Alternative medicine, which is why medical intuition is defined within that field, has not created adequate data to be researched and be proven valid. Complementary medicine, on the other hand, has been researched long enough to show evidence of support, evidence of consistency, evidence of process and protocol, as it takes a system, whether you're talking about a building, a car, or a medical procedure, or medical or psychological assessment, and in this case, even an energetic assessment. It takes time to produce those necessary categories within a field into which the data, and hopefully consistent data, can go. Examples of alternative medicine are medical intuition, shamanic healing, mediumship, when used in the context of wellness. I'm not talking about mediumship in the sense of the spiritualist church, which has been around for hundreds of years. Their sole, S-O-L-E, purpose is to bring forth evidentiary support of the existence of the soul, S-O-U-L. They have a lot of data collected over those years. Complementary medicine is much more common and includes traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathy, and medical systems such as those that have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So as you can tell, it's all about the data and the collection of the data. Where I have spent my time academically is in the field of anthropology, medical anthropology, cross-cultural spiritual healings, and cultural anthropology. Ethnographic research is about studying populations and cultures, studying the language, the behavioral and cultural patterns of the people in that population who can also be part of a larger culture. I often use the skills of ethnography to do my work. Medical intuition requires a great deal of observation. Intuitive observation, to be exact. As human beings, we are geared to look for patterns. Whenever I get the privilege to work with an autistic child, one of the first things I do in that assessment is go into the the beauty of their brain. I put my mind's consciousness right in the center of their precious brain and look through their eyes to gain the perspective that they have about the world around them. It never ceases to amaze me how brilliant these children are on the inside, but just have an issue getting it out into the world. The accuracy with which they can walk into a room and define the three major shapes that build every structure on this planet: the circle, the square, the triangle, the sphere, the cube, the cone. It's fascinating to be able to identify the children's preference in those patterns. Next comes their preferences of colors, sounds, tones, or dislike of any of those qualities. When I work with autistic children, no matter where they are on the spectrum, that is one of the first things that I assess to understand their point of view and how they perceive the world. I do this with adults as well. How else could I help them if I didn't understand their point of view, if I didn't have that observation experience within their being, within their body? All of us as humans identify with patterns and just automatically look for the patterns. As a medical intuitive, I look for the discordant patterns, the disconnected pattern, because that's the nature of the work, to look for that which is not connected, not working, challenged, or in a destructive cycle, or even a reconstructive cycle, something that's moving or changing from its normal position, either getting better or getting worse. On a personal note, I've been blessed to have decades more life than anyone in my family or the physicians who saved my life thought I would ever have. I mean, talk about a blessing. And karma, which brings me to this. One of the things that you observe in ethnography are the mythologies. And there are a lot of myths around illness and wellness. The one myth that disturbs me the most is the myth that your negative thoughts will make you sick. Now, with that being said, what I'm going to say next is not contradictory to that, and I'll flesh this out. Stress is harmful. Stress is usually born from negative thought of worry or fear and anxiety. Everything that comes with fear. However, it is not the sole, S-O-L-E, cause of a disease. I have yet to see that in the hundreds of thousands of hours of observation, both with individuals and on my own in research. For any of you who have a loved one suffering from a disease or a condition or an imbalance, or if you are, please blow that myth up. Right now, I work with what I call the four intelligences: spiritual, energetic, emotional, and physical levels of intelligence. As a medical intuitive, my intention is always to go in and look at the physiology first. If emotions come in, they're going to jump in like you and I are standing in line at a movie theater and bam, somebody just cut in line. I don't have to go seek emotional intelligence in someone's energy field, within a cell, or within a region of the body. It shows up. And in the field of medical intuition, one of the things that I know will advance it from the alternative category into complementary, which is a step up, is to not dwell solely on the emotional intelligence. And that is what I've been researching all these years, is how to apply, yet first develop, the skill to delve into the physiology of the body and bring all of the intelligences to bear in the assessment process. With any field of discipline, it doesn't matter if it's cooking or ski instructing, neurosurgery or psychoneuroimmunology, astronomy or astrophysics. There are systems involved within each field. And within those systems, there are practices, protocols, and processes, frameworks that give it structure. Medical intuition is in need of structure. Now, of course, I'm a structuralist, so of course I'm going to say that. I still think it's true. When you look at any discipline, even self-discipline, there needs to be a structure. You got to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, to the best of your ability. So that is one of the contributions I hope to continue to bring to the field. The structure of the process. Where it gets wavering is that everybody has intuition and everybody perceives differently. Yet I know from experience when I describe what I'm seeing to students or individuals, if I'm working with an individual, is that they get it. Their sight opens up. Their knowing comes to the surface. Their auditory or empathic channels align with what I am expressing, and they get it. They open up within themselves to a new way. It's not my way. I actually think it's much more Taoist than that. I think it's the middle way, of which I am an advocate. Balance. Staying in the middle of the road, because life and sometimes our own growthful choices will throw us in the trenches. And believe me, I have spent my own years learning how to elegantly climb out of a trench. I prefer the middle way. The middle of the road. Another aspect of becoming a medical intuitive that I think is important is in the process of assessment. And not only the process of assessment, but the depth that one can learn to go to. That's critical in my view. There is nothing worse. Again, my opinion, my perspective. However, to me, there is nothing worse than someone calling themselves a medical intuitive when what they do is have the ability to see energy, which is great, and understand emotions, which is wonderful and helpful, but then they leave the person with that. And perhaps the person is coming to them because they've been ill over a long period of time and no one can find out why. Or that they have a serious condition that has been diagnosed, such as cancer, and they want to get the holistic point of view so they can help themselves heal. But there's nothing worse than someone saying, you've got greenish energy around the liver, and I'm getting the sense that there's some anger there, and I'm picking up this male energy. I'm not sure if it's a father or an uncle or, I'm just not sure of what it is. That drives me nuts. How does that help someone? So while emotional intelligence, and that includes archetypes, are very powerful data points to give someone, a medical intuitive, in my view, and this is the way I train people, must develop the skills to assess physiology. People have illnesses. You can't be a medical intuitive and not address what's going on physically. You got to know the physical structure, not just basic anatomy, although that's very important to know that the spleen is on the left side of the body and not on the right side of the body. That's pretty darn important. However, to be really able to go into the structure of the body, and you don't have to know physiology, you don't have to know biochemistry. As an intuitive, you can tell it's off. It's disconnected. There's something discordant there. You look for those patterns that are not in alignment with the body. And it is true, to segue for a second, that emotions are easiest to assess. I know that. Everybody starts out intuitively as a holistic practitioner, assessing emotions. It's the easiest way to enter in. It's the gateway. But we're talking medical intuition here, not emotional intuition or psychological intuition. That's a completely different field. And it isolates the body. Medical intuition is about a holistic approach to the body, the mind, the energy, and the spirit or soul of the individual. When I do assessments, it's very rare to talk about spiritual intelligence because that's the all-encompassing component. If that is a prevalent aspect of this, if they are so far off their path and totally ignoring the power of their gifts, their voice, their talents, their artistry, their engineer-like mind, then we address that. I remember one time going into an individual's heart. And as soon as I went in there, the inflammation was very prevalent within the field. Not only within the field, but within the cell structure. And they had cardiocystitis. If I just would have looked at the emotional intelligence in the field, I wouldn't have been able to see the inflammation as it sat in the cells and was affecting chemistry and the pressure in the heart. What was also sitting there was the fact that this person was an amazing artist and they were in a completely different discipline, totally stressed out. And the heart always knows the way. Fortunately, they were a very intelligent person, and they moved away from their field, their current field of employment and purpose, and moved into that artist that was within them. And I haven't heard from them for several years, but at the last I heard, they were living happily ever after, and they had a happy heart. I believe we're all intuitive. I believe that there are people called into the field of medical intuition to be of service. I believe that those who are called into this field would not be called if they didn't have the ability to do the deep dive and make it about the medical aspect, not just emotional. When I'm working with people who have cancer, I look at the directional movement of the cells. I look at the emotional intelligence and the chemical intelligence of the cells. Over the years, I've mapped the movement and structure of cancer cells and compare and contrast that to normal cells around them, either within parts of the tumor that have not fully blown out yet or surrounding cell tissue and muscle tissue and organ tissue. To me, that's what a medical intuitive is capable of. I know there are more of you out there. And I think it's important that you take your standards as high as you can, that you engage in your own personal practice and create a lifestyle that supports the work. Because the work is not easy. Yet I've never experienced anything that brings me the state of awe more often within the course of a day than my work as a medical intuitive. To go into the heart and watch the electricity move through that beautiful beating organ, the first organ that comes online and the last one that leaves its function as we pass on to go home. There is nothing more beautiful except for watching a baby's energy entrain to its mother's. And I'll talk about that next time. For now, if you're in the healing arts, rededicate yourself to your personal practice. Again, to the lifestyle that best supports you in your work, so that you can be supported by yourself first, by those who love you, so you can support the people who trust you and come to you for help.